Hello and welcome to another video in the world of not Monster Hunter. This is Division 2 and I'm updating my previous build, which I dubbed Perfectly Negotiate, using 4-piece negotiators and 2-piece badger tough. I'm still basically running that, but I've dropped the 4-piece negotiators down to 2, just simply because the damage stacking or armor stacking as well with the explosions wasn't really required, and I felt it kind of limited a lot onto using Merciless. Now I am still using Merciless, but I'm not using it because I have to, like it's a must have with the build. I'm using it because I like the weapon and it makes very short work of those sniper dogs, which are basically the bane of your existence with this build because they can hit you so damn hard. Perfectly Unbreakable doesn't friggin' proc, which is outstanding. But yeah, I've made a few changes, and this is basically going to be the final product or the final version of this build that I am showing. All that's really left for me to change is potentially get a better mask, just because although it's got 55% damage to elites, it's also got 6% health, which seems pointless. I'd rather have, you know, maybe 20,000 health. That would be a little bit more worth my while, as well as just generally upping some of the rolls overall and perhaps some of the damage mods as well, which is one of the big downsides of this build. I literally only have 2 damage mod slots, so I have to be very picky about what I put in. So like I said, overall this is basically a final side of this build. I was going to show a few clips of me doing heroic, but although it can do heroic, it does take a while because it's a bit more of a balanced build rather than full out friggin' attack. It does work in heroic, you just need to pay a lot more attention to your perfectly unbreakable buff or debuff, whatever you want to call it, and hopefully stay in cover because we're running patience, which is handy. So anyway, without further ado, let's have a quick gander at the change in the DPS. Obviously, as it's an SMG, very unreliable with headshots, so the DPS is going to be quite low, but on body shots, you are averaging roughly 1 million of those dupes, so it's pretty okay in terms of the damage end. It does chew through the yellows pretty darn quick, but obviously there are builds that work better. Now I am just using the UMP45 because I actually really just like this weapon. You could really use anything, and all you've got to do is swap out the knees. As you can see here, UMP45 pretty much got 29k damage on it. Finally got preservation on there, which is a personal thing for me just to help me stay alive. It's got jazz hands, which I'm not too happy with. I would prefer Allegro just to help with the DPS a little bit more. For weapon mods, I'm running the 8% damage to elites, 20 rounds with negative 10% reload speed, and then the rest is basically crit chance. Secondary weapon, I am running Merciless. This just helps with the holstered passive, the 5% chance to do a nice big boom, and generally the duplex trigger with the primer and an explosion works absolutely wonders at destroying those robots. For pistol, I am running Lightning Rod just because, particularly in heroic, I don't always have time to reload. It's quicker just to swap to my pistol, and often end up clearing a wave with the pistol because of the talent that it has. 75% chance to refill the magazine after every kill with the pistol, and double duty is generally quite handy as well, just because I'm not using as much from my ammo pool, generally speaking. Hopefully doesn't always work out that way. So for the actual pieces altogether, Negotiator's Mask, this is one that I am looking at possibly changing. As you can see, 6% health, but that 55% damage to elites is great. Wouldn't mind an actual health stat on there, maybe 20k health, something like that, or even if it was just armor, basically anything really other than 6% health. As for my chest, I'm using 0Fs. It's got crit damage on there, prefer that if that's crit chance. Weapon damage at 13.5%, which I feel was quite tasty, and some armor. but the main reason we're using it is perfectly unbreakable. This is what allows you to do the majority of the tanking, just because, you know, tanking, yay. Do have some weapon mods in here as well. As you can see, I've got SMG damage and rifle damage at 4% with weapon damage at 1%, and I've also got in there a defensive mod, and the only reason that I've gone for this one is because of the armor regeneration per second. These seem rather rare. Does anyone know if there's like what the percentage drop for these are? Because that I would recommend using the armor regeneration per second. Holster, again, I've got a good chunk of health in there and 15% crit chance, which is handy. I am at something like 54% critical hit chance on my UMP 45, which is great. Again, nice bit of defensive mod in there, and it's really just because it's got a nice big chunk of health on it. Onto the backpack, which allows us to get our 2-piece Badger Tough, 1 piece being 7% damage to elites and the 2-piece being 15% armor on kill. This backpack is pretty darn okay. I just wish I could get higher weapon damage on it. I don't know what the max stat or max roll for weapon damage on a backpack is, but I feel, because I've never seen higher than 9%, that 9% is possibly pretty darn close. In all, not really a bad backpack. I'd actually probably just keep this and just hopefully get a higher damage roll. Again, armor regeneration per second on the defense mod slot. Not the highest amount, but it's the only other one I've got. What can you do? Moving on to good old Gloveroos. I actually messed up with these. I did pick up another pair of gloves that had 12% SMG damage on, but I accidentally deconstructed them, and I've been beating myself in the head ever since. So for these, just make sure you've got something with your preferred weapon damage on, and I've got hazard protection, which you don't want to know about. Finally, this is the main part I've changed. I've removed the Negotiator's knees, and I'm now using Sokolov. Sokolov gives me 15% damage on SMG, 10% damage on SMG, sorry. And this is the part where there's a lot of build variety given into it. If you like using assault rifles, use Fenris knees. If you like using LMG, use Petrov knees. I would recommend trying to keep patience on there, just because it helps you stay alive. However, if you are wanting to do a bit more damage, you might have noticed nothing at the moment really has hard hitting on for that extra 25% damage. If you do want to put that on, it does give you one hell of a boost. It puts you at like a max of like 90, well, with the build I've currently got, about 97% damage to elites. So you can do a lot of damage, but you're also a bit more squishy. Having patience on that, I have found, is absolutely amazing for staying alive, particularly in heroic missions. As you just might have just seen there, I did have a Petrov knees, which I am planning on using an LMG side to it. For my skills, I am using the Cluster Seeker and the Revive Hive. For those rare occasions, I do Bite the Dust. And that just about does it for this video. Like I said, this is the final one, so no more Negotiators builds, I might promise. In the meantime, have fun, good luck, and don't die. It's bad for the health.